Hey, good afternoon, everyone. This is the Vermont House Committee on Commerce and Economic Development. It's Friday, January 24th, 2025 at 1 p.m. in the afternoon. So we're here this afternoon to hear from Adult Education and Literacy Network. Just an introduction to, thank you, to members of your organization, what you do around the state. Very important work, especially for us when we're thinking about workforce training and workforce development. So thank you both for joining us this afternoon, Joe, Michelle. Before you get started, actually, I'll ask the committee to introduce themselves to you so you can put a face with the names. John?
Jonathan Cooper, Bennington 1. I live in Pownell, and the district also includes Reedsboro, Stanford, Searsburg.
Hi, Emily Harris Duncan, representing Tampa Valley, Wilmington, Weddingham, and Halifax.
Herb Olson, representing Bristol, Lincoln, Mountain, Starksville, Northeastern Madison County.
I'm Abby Duke from part of Burlington.
And Vice Chair Training is at another meeting right now. Representative Priestley, so they'll hopefully join us in about half an hour. I'm Mike Marcotte. I'm from Coventry, and I represent Coventry, Irisburg, Newport Town, Troy, Jay, Westfield, Lowell, and Eden. Chair of the committee.
Hi, I'm Kirk White. We briefly had lunch just a few minutes ago. And I represent Bethel, Stockbridge, Hancock, and Rochester, and I'm the ranking member.
Michael Booton, Berry City.
Tony Nicholas representing most of Milton and a little bit of Georgia.
Dave Bosch representing Wallingford, Clarendon, where I live, West Rutland, and the bulk of Rutland Town.
Nice to meet you all.
Yes. And I'm Joe Christopher, Vermont Adult Learning. I'm the program director there. And joining me today is Michelle.
I'm Michelle Fost. I'm the executive director of Northeast Kingdom Learning Services, and we serve Essex, Caledonia, and Orleans County.
So give me just a moment here. I'm going to pull up a presentation. I'm not so used to using Zoom, so just a moment to make sure I get this right. Do both of those. Sorry.
Should I be some meeting?
Yeah.
Share screen.
Hold on. Sorry. Yes. There. Let's go, baby. Sorry. Just gotta be-
All I need to do is walk over here.
Yeah.
Okay. So, like I said, my name is Joe Christopher. I'm with Vermont Adult Learning. And we have 4 different agencies that provide adult education and literacy in Vermont. And what we're doing basically is working to build people's assets by building their education. We've all heard the saying about teaching a person to fish rather than just giving them the fish. We're teaching them to fish. We're giving them the skills, the academic skills, but also the work readiness sort of skills, the soft skills that they need to move on in their lives, get better jobs, contribute more in their communities, contribute more in their families. Working across here, we've got Northeast Kingdom Learning Services, which Michelle leads as executive director, serving Orleans, Caledonia, and Essex County. In Central Vermont Adult Education serves Lamoille, Washington, and Orange County. Down in Bennington County, we have Bennington Tutorial Center, and Vermont Adult Learning serves the other 7 counties here in Vermont.
So of course, our working with students, it's very student oriented. And so we work specifically with them, with their dreams, their goals. And sometimes students will come to us and not really have any sense of what it is that they want to do. And part of the work we do is to help them kind of pull out that through a series of assessments of career exploration opportunities, of character strengths, of really just trying to have them get to know themselves first. And then as they identify their own hopes and dreams and goals, we build out individual learning plans for them to meet the goals that they've identified, and then build all the steps of how are you going to get there. So the services that we provide, they set goals in family and life, personal goals. They set academic goals, and they set career and college readiness goals. So we cover, the whole student. We have literacy education, reading, writing, math. We have financial literacy. We do digital literacy. We are English language learner and U.S. citizenship providers and preparation, high school diplomas, GEDs, career and college readiness. So there's a lot of services that we're able to provide to a student based on their individual hopes and dreams.
And Michelle's talked about this already a little bit. It's very much tailored to each individual student and what their particular goals are. The students coming to us come from such varied backgrounds. There's so many different reasons they're coming to us. Could be that they dropped out of school at 16. Could be that they completed and they're now 45. They've been in the construction trades and their body's giving out and they need something new to do, but they need some refreshing on the basic academics. Maybe they need some help. Maybe they've never put a resume together before. They don't know how to use the digital tools that are out there to find a job and apply for a job. All those things are parts of what we do, and it's really tailored to what those students need to move on in their lives. If they need credentials, we help connect them with that. It's very broad. It could be a new person to America who needs English, and they may be very skilled in their home country. They may have advanced degrees, even, but they just don't have the language to get a job or even participate in our communities.
And part of that also, sometimes they need help navigating the systems here to get their credentials that are from another country recognized here. And we experienced that in the Northeast Kingdom with some of our Ukrainian population who are psychologists and psychiatrists and medical professionals in Ukraine. So we also play a very active role in, the tech education and working with our local career and technical education partners. So we work closely with them. And one of the things that we do around the workforce development, about a year and a half ago, we were granted an earmark from Senator Sanders, and Vermont Adult Learning worked on an environmental workforce, and I'll let you speak to that. And we did a Step Up to Childcare program where we are working on our third cohort right now. So far, we've already trained 20 new professionals for the childcare field. And we're starting a training in our last cohort is starting in April. And that's specifically going to be for substitutes in childcare centers, which is another big workforce need. We also have another pilot workforce development that is starting, and ours is pre-workforce development, it's pre-training. And it is Step Up to Paraprofessional. And we're working with the Hazen Union School on this pilot to train up 6 paraprofessionals using our Step Up model. And I can talk a little more about that later.
Yeah, I think an important thing Michelle said there is it's the students that we're working with often generally aren't ready for the tech center class or the certificate class. They wouldn't be able to access those without our help to build the skills that they need to be successful in those courses. And if they were to go straight into them, they would struggle and probably not do so well. So we're a complementary system. We're not overlapping very much. We're really feeding into those other systems. Michelle mentioned our Energy Works program. This was part of a large grant we got from through Senator Sanders' office, and all 4 adult ed providers developed these workforce development programs. Vermont Adult Learning's program focused on training folks in weatherization and heat pump installation because those are tremendous needs if we're going to meet our goals around weatherizing houses and reducing carbon emissions, things like that. So you can see up there, we've trained over 178 Vermonters to date. They've earned a variety of credentials. Many of them went straight into the workforce. Others went on to more training. Some of them realized they love this work and wanted to get more training in the trades. Some of them went into the jobs and have rapidly moved up through the ranks because of this background that they had as they went in. And it's hard work, especially the weatherization part. It's dirty work. It's crawling into basements. It's being up in attics in the heat of the summer. It takes a special person to do it, but it also takes some special skills and teamwork and things like that. So we've really developed the program to give them a good sense of what it involves. And in a way, we're kind of a screening mechanism too for various employers so that by the time they finish our program, they know they've got somebody who's interested in this and they've got the skills.
Yeah, and I think, and I want to just follow up on that a little bit more. So to help you understand where we are in the whole system, right? Because we have the community, we have the tech centers, we have apprenticeship programs in the state. And so we really are that first stop, that pre-training. And so, for example, the Step Up to Childcare program trains people to go through Vermont orientation, mandated reporting, licensing, regulation, specialized childcare, and all of the requirements, background check, all of that to be able to work in a childcare center. So all those things that they have to work at first aid CPR. And what's different about it is we also have a component that really talks to the social and emotional. Because, and not just for working with children with challenging behaviors, but also for themselves, right? If I can't regulate myself as an adult, how can I possibly expect to regulate a 2-year-old who is experiencing some very big things in a classroom? And so by the time they successfully complete with us, they have done an 80-hour internship in a childcare center. And many of them were then hired by the childcare center they interned in. But then they go into that first employment entry level, having a very strong foundational skills. And then they're able to, one, have confidence to be able to sign up for that CCV course, to start going into the Northern Lights CCV career ladder. And so these kind of programs that we're doing is really that foundational piece. And that's where we, as adult education and literacy, fit into adult education in the state.
I meant to mention too, if you have questions anywhere along the lines, feel free to stop us and ask away.
So the high school completion program was our program for, I think since 2000, early 2000s, which was the pathway for students to earn a high school diploma with their local high school. The student, adult education and literacy worked together to create a high school completion plan of everything that they would need to do in order to earn the graduation requirements for the school that they were assigned to. And throughout the state, that looked different because every school had different graduation requirements. So there was a little bit of lack of consistency there. There also were some funding problems with adult education and literacy, and we found ourselves, coming to legislators and asking, for one-time allocations and really trying to explain why adult ed and literacy had been underfunded for so long and why providers were really struggling. And what really brought that to light even more so was the pandemic. But I have to say, I have been so proud of the legislature and you as legislators and the process over the past couple of years, because last year, one of the best things that happened was you found sustainable and predictable funding for adult education and literacy. And so we are not coming back for one-time funding requests because now we have the formula that properly and sustainably and moves with the times because it's 26% of the base education rate, which is amazing letting us focus, have the funds, we can then focus on all these great training opportunities and getting folks, from high school diploma to college to career, and such like that. So the program, there was a study commission that happened, and a legislative committee was put together. They came back with some recommendations after really taking a look at the program. Some of the challenges we as providers had with the program was equity, accessibility for students, and, among some other things. So the study committee came back and their recommendation was to sunset the high school completion program. And they sunset that program as of June 30th, 2024. Okay. And so in 2025, we now have for the adult diploma program. However, one of the challenges has been that program has not yet been lifted up yet. We have an anticipated start date of February 1st, but there are also some documents and templates and stuff that will not be completed until spring. So the program is definitely coming, but it's been slow moving, which unfortunately created an unintended consequence for about 100 students in the state that had a signed high school completion plan prior to July 1st, but had not completed it by July 1st. The agency did give us a very small window to complete them, but there was no way they were going to complete, but they have completed now. The majority of that 100 have completed or on the cusp of completing. And so they're kind of in this limbo, which is why we asked for the Budget Adjustment Act to have some notwithstanding language. And that we'll mention that at the end there, but that's why that's so critically important. And that will really tie the bow up great for those students. They'll be able to move on. They'll be able to start going to the college of their choice, to move into a management training program at their work, lots of different things. So the adult diploma program is in process. It's coming along. We had a meeting with the agency this morning, and there is a work group that will be starting next week so that we can help just define the proficiency-based graduation requirements for an adult. And it'll be the same in Bennington County, in Chittenden County, Essex County. So it will be the same all along, and the template and the way we develop the plans will be, the same. There'll be continuity, and yet the way the plans are structured allows us to work individually with each individual student to capture their personal goals, desires, dreams, and really nuance it and have ways for them to show proficiency, a variety of ways. They may take a formal assessment test. They may be a really good test taker. They may not be, but they can show through a proficiency project their proficiency through tasks. So that's a work in progress, and I would love to be able to have us come back to you, say maybe later in the spring, after it's been rolled out, to let you know how it's going and how it's hitting the field. I think that's and we graduated. I mean, we as a system in the state have graduated a very large high school on an annual basis.
I think this is actually, we've covered a lot of this just now. We moved all the part of the change with ADP is it moved under one umbrella instead of several different funding sources, which definitely cleaned things up. There was an issue around age, that some things referred to students over 21, some referred to over 16. Now we serve anyone over 16 years of age.
Everything's aligned, which
Yeah.
is beautiful.
And just some background. We mentioned the different programs. This gives you some idea of how many students we see in different areas, completing and earning a high school diploma versus English language learning, and adult basic ed would be some who maybe aren't quite ready for the diploma program and working on very basic skills, maybe just starting to learn to read. That we definitely have adults in the state who cannot read yet. Or it could be somebody who's come back because they have their diploma, like I talked about before, but they need a brush up. They need some skills built again. Sometimes they earn their diploma, they still are struggling with reading or writing. And here they have children and their children are in school, they need to be able to read to them. And they're like, I really didn't learn to read well. I need to go back and a lot of them want to set a model for the children. So you can see our numbers have been building over the years, especially this one, the English language learner group has doubled in the last few years, essentially. It's just grown and grown. And this year we're on track for an even higher number in this column. I say doubled. If you went back to the year before this, it was doubled from that. FY24. And then this, that's it.
So I mentioned the Budget Adjustment Act, and so the notwithstanding language is language that would allow this group of 100 thereabout students that I spoke of who have been caught in limbo to be able to complete their plan that was signed and agreed to by July 1st, 2024, to be able to graduate by June 30th, 2025. So the end of, which is the end of our fiscal year for adult education and literacy. And the great thing, the governor's recommended budget had the BAA in there, the additional funds for adult ed. And the reason those funds were there was when they lifted this up originally, we had to guesstimate the number of students that would go into the number times the 26% of the base education rate. When they finally finalized the FY24 numbers, there were significantly more. And so this is just correcting to match the language in the legislation that it's 26% of the base education rate. And so that's what that additional 500,000 for next year. So when the FY26 budget comes out, it will come out with the actual amount for FY26 based on exactly the numbers of 24 and 23. So there'll be no need for a Budget Adjustment Act in 2026. And now we should be in that place where there should not, unless something really crazy happens, ever need to be a need for a Budget Adjustment Act, because you set the funding formula to be sustainable and predictable.
That's what we have for you. Be happy to entertain any questions you have. There are things you'd like to know more about, we're glad to share.
Just to let you know, we sent our recommendations to appropriations this morning. Vice Chair Granning sat in on the presentation to education yesterday. The committee has recommended that they appropriate funds.
Thank you so much for that support.
So, just so you know that, I think, some of the clients that Adult Learning Services serves are people that are coming out from incarceration as well.
Yes.
And, that's really important, I think, to help that population to make sure that they have their diploma, their high school diploma or equivalent, and that we help them as much as we can to train them into a skill so that they become, good members of society and providing for the common good of the community.
One of the things the performance measures don't capture is that the confidence building. So the work that we do as we're doing all of this, one of the big pieces that I think is understated is by building somebody's confidence in themselves and their belief that they can do hard things, allows them to really do that next step, right? Which they may never have gotten to had not been for the opportunity to work with adult education and literacy.
It's true. I don't know how many times students have said, you hadn't had so much faith in me, help me get through this, and now I've got the confidence to go forward. So,
I think we saw the word confidence in one of the quotes from somebody on the weatherization slide.
Yeah.
I also noticed in that slide, Brock in your background. So can I hear some of, and we'll be talking to the community action elements later today, but I'm just curious, can you talk a little bit about your connections? How does it you work together? I mean, I sat down with Sean Marie at a tutorial center just last week, but I'd like to hear more about how some of these organizations interact.
With Energy Works, we work very closely with the weatherization teams on all the different, not all of them, but many of the opportunity councils with Setka, Brock, Champlain, Office of Economic Opportunity, are close partners, and we've worked back and forth developing the curriculum with them to make sure we're training on what their people need to know as they come on to the weatherization crews. They need feedback, and they've been major supporters of the program. Many of the graduates from the programs go on to work for those organizations, though others also go into private weatherization and construction teams. You want to say more about Northeast Kingdom and your connections there?
Well, we work with all the partners. We work with the local community action. We work with Department of Labor, with Hireability, with the tech centers, with and many local employers. I think one of the things that we're doing right now, because of the step up programs that we've been doing, and it's something that we've talked with our partners about, and we're looking at how we can also help partners to do this. Our Step Up to Childcare program has been VSAC approved. So it's something that, you know, there is been a cost assigned to it. And so it's something that somebody could get a VSAC grant to take, because there is a cost to deliver that. You know, the instruction, all of that is covered under the grant, but to pay for a paid internship, to pay for the texts and materials that they need, to pay for the different tests that they need to take, the fees, you know, if they take an online training, those kind of costs, you know, there are costs associated with the trainings. So we have them as VSAC approved. We also have them approved as IETs, which is mandated through the Adult Educational Literacy Grant. An IET is an integrated employment training, education training and training program, which means that it has three components. It has it has a academic component and skill building. It has a workforce development program, and it has a credentialing program as well, right?
Yeah. Technical skills, academic skills, and
soft skills.
Soft skills, yes.
Yeah. You know, and one of the things that we've discovered, especially with the paraeducator and the Step Up to Childcare, is the social emotional skill needs. You know, and we're finding that it's actually something also, because we also have on the board a HVAC, Step Up to HVAC. And we're working right now with with AHAC, with the Allied Health and Education Careers, on a Step Up to Health Careers that will be launched in 2026. So that's in the early stages. And all of these, you know, like I said, will be VSAC approved. So when you start thinking about sustainability of workforce training, you know, how do you create sustainability for these things? You know, the Sanders Grant did a great job lifting up the step up in this, but you're not always going to get a Sanders Grant. And so, you know, creating a sustainability model is very important.
I think what you said about the emotional learning is a key piece too. And for many of these students, there were things that got in the way of their education along the way. It could be family matters, it could be corrections and corrections. Sometimes these things have been resolved, a lot of times they haven't. And that's part of our work too. It's connecting them with the resources so that they can move along. And sometimes it is that social emotional kind of executive function sort of thing of how do I make sure I'm getting to work every day on time and dressed appropriately. Things like that are maybe basic skills that we can work on as they come to class every day. That's the starting point.
And what are my triggers? You know, if I'm working in a mechanic shop, what are my triggers and why? And can I understand why when somebody does that to me, I go to that place of like, that, yeah, we call it flipping the lid. Like, why do I flip my lid? And just understanding. So, and everything we do is contextualized, right? So it's contextualized to the field. Because you can talk, I mean, social emotional brings up certain, pictures, I guess, in our heads, right? But really it's something that is in every aspect of every position of every life. And a lot of our participants, the majority of our participants, say at the end of the training when they do their evaluation, that there were skills they learned in this that they have taken in their personal life. And that's huge, when I'm communicating with my partner better. I almost got into a fight with my partner the other day, but then I remembered, what you had said and, and so I responded differently and we didn't get in a fight and everybody felt good. That's huge. So I don't know where we are for time. I could talk for it.
We have until 1:15. Michelle, did you want to just chat a little bit about childcare center?
Sure, I can share about that. So in the Northeast Kingdom in 2019, 6 months before the pandemic, we opened a childcare center. I can write a book, 101 Things Not to Do when opening a childcare center. However, I am super proud. It's called Ready, Set, Grow Childcare Center. We are a 5-star center. We are also a teaching center. And so North Country Career Center has a human services program. And so anybody in that program that is interested in early education will come to our center to do their work placement. We also are a very strong partner in the Step Up to Childcare and have helped to train teachers. We also view ourselves as a teaching ground. And so we have had students that now, because we've been open 6 years now, came to us graduating from North Country Career Center, came to us, worked part-time as they were going to CCD, and have now left us to go full-time on campus to finish their bachelor's, to become a licensed Vermont teacher and to stay here in Vermont. So we are also a teaching facility. We are licensed for 100 students. We certainly, right now we're about 89, 90. And we're probably going to not exceed that because of quality of care. We want to, even though we're licensed to have so many kiddos in each room, the quality of care is really our priority. We're play-based. We believe in the power and the education of use through play. We also have been doing social emotional work with our staff, and that has been huge. A lot of our staff started with us very young. Our first staff came to us through the first iteration of Step Up to Childcare. And we didn't do the social emotional part back then. We just did the credentials and to get in the door and the internship. And we learned quickly that there was a missing component, and the social emotional was the critical missing piece. And so we adjusted our Step Up to Childcare to really hone in on that social emotional. And we also started doing that work with our staff. And we have seen so much growth. The retention of our staff is incredible. We have staff that have been there with us since we opened. We have staff that have been with us 2 years, 4 years, 3 years. So staff retention, fewer incidents in the classrooms. Fewer, outbursts and incidents. And we have a pretty good percentage of our students that are children in foster care, it can be very hard. There are a lot of students that, come to us that are born with fetal alcohol syndrome, that, have parents that are incarcerated. And so there's a lot of, or they have, there's domestic abuse. And so, we have students that will leave to go have a visit with mom or dad. and then they will come back. And in the past, they would come back and be completely dysregulated and like blow out. But now we have this one room, we call it the porcupine polyvagal reset room, something like that. And so basically, we now have the skills and the staff and the materials to help a student that comes in dysregulated to regulate and then to join peers in the classroom. And it's much more successful. That's not to say that we don't still have, you know, the day-to-day challenges and we still don't have where sometimes teachers are like, I need to tag out, like I have to tag out, right? I can't do this. And they do that. They know when to ask when they need to step away, and they step away, they self-regulate themselves, they bring themselves back to the classroom. I would love to find the funding to open up a second childcare center in the Northeast Kingdom. But it's a two sides to it, right? You have to have the staff, and you have to have the staff that have gone through a step up to childcare. And you need to have considerable funding to open up and lift up a childcare center that will be sustainable and successful. And there's been huge progress on the childcare front. When you talk about legislative actions that are making long-lasting impact, all the work that was done around funding for the childcare center, for the childcare industry, for the childcare programs, for childcare in the state, were phenomenal. And I can't stress enough how important it is that we don't try to take back some of that, that we continue to support those funds. You know, it's brand new. Let's give it some time to see the potential of it and what that looks like. 5 years from now, you're going to see a difference. This is my prediction. 5 years from now, we will see improved special education rates. In the Northeast Kingdom, I can only speak for my area. But because of the work that we're doing. I love my organization. I love adult educational literacy. I am passionate about the work that you folks have done, and I feel like I'm the most optimistic I've ever been about education in the state of Vermont. We still have work to do, but we'll get there.
I think from all of the, you know, the areas that we've worked on with BZAC to provide scholarships and forgivable loan funds for people that are taking early childhood education courses and other things that we've done with nursing programs, just to try to encourage more people into those workforce slots that we need. And we have a new executive director to workforce strategy and development for the state, which is long overdue. And I think, you know, a lot of things that we've been doing in here and working with our other committees, and, you know, with the administration and of course our counterparts in the Senate are starting to pay off, I think. And I think you're right. I think, you know, in the next few years, these investments that we're making now are going to start paying dividends. And we just need to make sure we don't take our foot off the gas.
Right.
Just a question for you about the weatherization training. You said it was 178 Vermonters that have gone through.
Yeah.
Year to date, or how long has that program been going?
It's been going 2.5 years, I think. Right now.
Relatively new.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. Thank you.
And it took a little bit to build it as first few groups went through. Like I said, we were checking back in with the employers that we were working with, make sure that people were getting the skills they're really needed in the field. Because at first it was kind of theoretical. This is what we should make sure we teach them. We got that reality check of, okay, we need to work on some of the social and emotional. How do you provide good customer service, which maybe isn't the first thing you think of when you're weatherizing a home. You're at somebody's home.
Right.
And going through their living room and things, you have to have good customer service. So
Yeah.
it really falls apart.
it's an iterative process, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, we're constantly learning. Even from this last cohort we did, we're gonna tweak one more thing in the third cohort. Stuff with the childcare will be provided annually now, and we're also looking for a way to provide it statewide.
To Michelle's point earlier about the sustainability of it, it's definitely a struggle. We've had this Sanders grant and some other grants that really drove Energy Works, but they were limited time and they're running out, and we're really searching now for more funding to keep it going and make sure it's sustainable.
So you were describing the aspect of the childcare center that was training folks. Is that is the funding for that training, does that come out of the Act 46 revenue, or is that a separate funding budget?
So like at Ready Set Grow, when we have folks come in to do training, they get paid to work for us. And so they get paid to work for us. They might be connected with one of Northern Lights programs around, early childhood, one of their programs. We're a feeder. So like we feed into the pre-apprenticeship and the apprenticeships of childcare and the TEACH program and those kind of things. Yeah.
So the childcare center that you run, it sounds like you really see it as it's both workforce development as well as it's incredible benefit, right, for the children who are there. Are there other childcare centers around the state that are run in a similar way with that sort of dual focus?
We work with 10 different childcare centers through the Step Up to Childcare program.
Okay.
And so all of them are trying to do similar things. The beautiful thing about the Step Up to Childcare program is we had 10 participants placed in, I think they were 6 different childcare centers, one in Stowe, one in St. Johnsbury, one at JP, one in Holland, one in Newport. There were a couple others. And so everybody's trying to do this. The challenge is for childcare centers, if I'm running just my own childcare center, just running the childcare center is huge, let alone if I'm trying to also train staff. So the beauty of a Step Up to Childcare program is, I can test drive a potential employee.
Mhm.
And then I can have an employee that is coming to me with pretty solid foundation, that I then can, then all the big lift has been done. So then it's just, having them work on their individual professional development plan every year, right? So maybe it's taking additional trainings or a CCB course. No.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trish.
Appreciate all the
Yeah,
work
thank
that you
you.
do.
Thanks. We'd love to come back and fill you in after ADP is fully evolved. And also on the workforce development.
Certainly have you, and when you're ready for that, let Anna Grace know.
Okay,
We'll set it up in the schedule at that time.
sounds good. Thank you so much for listening and for your questions. Appreciate it. I'll be in touch.
Thank you.
We'll turn to our Vermont Community Action Partners. Liz?
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
I do have a slideshow to share, if that's okay.
Yeah, that'd be great. Anna Grace, I'm sure, has made you co-host.
Okay. Okay, that work?
There
Good.
we go.
Before you get started, I'll just ask the committee to introduce themselves to you, a lot of new members. Just so you can put a face to the name.
Okay, thanks.
I'm Lee Harris Duncan, representing Deerfield Valley, Williamson, Whiting, Halifax.
Representing Bristol, Lincoln, Moncton, Starksville.
Nice to meet you. I am Abby Duke. I'm from Burlington.
Hi, Edie Granning, representing Jericho and Underhill and the vice chair of the committee.
And I'm Mike Markoff from Coventry, representing Coventry, Harrisburg, Newport Town, Troy J. Westfield, Lowell, and Eaton, and chair of the committee.
I'm Kirk White. I represent Bethel, Rochester, Stockbridge, and Hancock, and I'm the ranking member. Michael Booton, Berry City.
Tony Nicholas representing most of Milton and a little bit of Georgia.
Dave Bosch from Clarendon, representing Wallingford, Clarendon, West Rutland, and bulk of Rutland Town.
Who's our committee assistant.
Nice to meet you all.
This has been a great exercise for us so that we can now rattle off our
Names and locales.
towns pretty quickly now.
Nice.
The easiest one.
Alrighty, well, thank you for having me. I have met some of you before in previous testimonies on some of our programs for the Community Action Partnership. My name's Liz Sharp, and I'm the Director of Community Economic Development and Food Security at Capstone Community Action. I'm a resident of Middlesex, and I'm here to represent 3 economic development programs that we have throughout the statewide network of community action agencies. My agency covers Washington, Orange, and Lamoille counties, as well as some of Windsor County, but our whole network covers the entire state. So let's see. Time for me to advance the slide. Okay, I'll just pull it down and see what happens. There we go. Everybody see that? Yeah. So these are our 5 community action agencies. We have Brock down in the Rutland area. We have Capstone, and my colleague Alison Calderera, who's our interim director, is here right now. We have CDOEO up in the Burlington area, covering the Franklin, Grand Isle, Chittenden, and Addison counties with Paul Dragon. And the Northeast Kingdom Community Action Council, led by Jenna O'Farrell, and then our Southeast Community Action, led by Josh Davis. So every one of our counties is covered in the Community Action Network. Community Action, just to give you a brief overview, is a service that's been around we just celebrated our 60th year in 2024. And it is a program, a national program that was developed to fight the war on poverty, which is still happening, as we know. And the programs that Community Action offers, while a lot of them are very similar, we each have our own sort of unique programming. But in general, we offer our Head Start early childcare, which tends to be a big part of our budgets. Weatherization, so doing home weatherization for folks who are income eligible to have their homes weatherized. We offer things like emergency services like fuel assistance, food shelves, and housing counseling services, which we're also talking about in other committees today as a network. And then we have what are called the economic development programs, which are the ladders out of poverty. And that's what I'm here today to talk about. So we have 3 programs that are currently funded in part by the state of Vermont. We have the Micro Business Development. We call it MBDP, which stands for Micro Business Development Program. We have the VITA Tax Program, which is the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program. And then we have our Financial Counseling and Coaching Program. And we have certain funding requests that we have for these 3 programs. So first, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Micro Business Development Program. So we've been around since 1988 as a network, helping folks who are a micro business is considered a small business, but it's actually sort of a very small business, fewer than 5 employees. So in Vermont, we have about 50% of, or over 50% of businesses are small businesses, which are fewer than 500. And of those, about 50% are, a little over 50% are micro businesses. And those are often just one employee, right? But oftentimes they'll have maybe up to 5 people total in their business. So during this timeframe, we've helped over 2,100 Vermont businesses, and that is bringing in jobs to the state. And we've leveraged over $15 million in financing to help those businesses. So if you are someone who is interested in starting a small business and you were to visit a community action agency, there are income limits. So we do work specifically with the lower income community. So those who are 80% area median income or lower are eligible for our services. And I think probably you've heard of the Vermont Small Business SBDC. Those folks do similar work of us. They offer workshops, they do counseling, but they often refer folks to us who tend to need a little bit more of that hand holding. So a lot of the folks that come to us may be struggling in their own personal finances. They may not have access to credit. They often don't have that family wealth or connections in order to get their business off the ground. So, or they may have a disability. They may be working with higher ability and, be interested in starting a business. So those are the folks who will come to the community action for support with their micro business. So we offer not just the one-on-one coaching and counseling, but we have a regular stream, like every week, except for a few weeks in the summer, we do a rotating workshops that include things like tax preparation and planning, business plan development, cash flow analysis, marketing, social media, that kind of thing to help businesses who are either interested in starting a business or people who already have a business and need some more supports. So here's just a little snapshot of the landscape of what we've done to help folks. So as I mentioned earlier, there's just some stats over there of what a micro business is. So looks like micro businesses employed almost 17,000 people. And we helped last year close to 700 Vermonters with business coaching and workshops. And that resulted in 73 businesses started, 53 business expansions, and 687,000 in capital accessed by 65 businesses. And it resulted in 60 full-time equivalent jobs that were created.
I'm reading it.
Yeah.
20,696,000 small businesses established. 51% of those were micro businesses. They started out in this program.
No, this is just the landscape of micro business in Vermont.
So do you know how many micro businesses that were started under the program that have now gone on to become a small business and not a micro business?
There are a few, like up our sleeves. I think I think it was The Alchemist, started out like with some small business counseling. But in general, and we were asked that in the last testimony that we had, like how many people are still in business, right? And that's not always the easiest thing to track. But I'll give you an example. I don't know if you remember Embrace, the grant that we did for small businesses that came out from the COVID pandemic. So, one thing that we quickly realized when the federal government was offering these relief to small businesses was that a lot of the micro businesses weren't eligible because they didn't have enough like tax implications, they didn't have enough income. And so we created Embrace, which gave sort of micro grants of $5,000 to small businesses. We helped about, I think it was 460 businesses with those. It was $2.5 million. And I was just looking at the report just the other day, and I think there were 6 businesses featured, and I was like, I'll just take a look and see if they're still in business. 5 of them were still in business. So So, we'd have to, often it's very hard to track that kind of thing. You do it through surveys and things like that, but your results aren't great necessarily.
Do I have it right that Switchback started as a?
Maybe I'm thinking Switchback. When I said Alchemist, I'm thinking Switchback. Yeah, yes, it was Switchback.
And you have someone in this program that started off very small, and didn't have a lot of money, got started, and now look at where Switchback. Program is something that this committee has been.
You've been champions of, yes, and we really appreciate it. Yes.
So it really helps people that want to be an entrepreneur to be able to get into business and start, on their own and start hiring people as well. So.
Yeah. And, all of our business coaches have been business owners themselves. I think between my two coaches at Capstone, they have like 50 years combined or 60 years combined business. So they come, with experience that they need. They have the boots on the ground experience. They know what it's like to, struggle to make payroll, right? That kind of thing. And so here's just some testimony. I'm not going to read them, but these are just some various folks who, we really work with everyone from, someone who wants to do a landscaping business or house cleaning business to, reading tarot cards. And here's a psychologist, here's a writer, who's looking, artists, a lot of sort of artisan type folks who are looking to, find a business niche for them. So these are just some testaments to the appreciation that these businesses have, that have helped them, often take the next step to building their business. I'm going to talk briefly about the next economic development, which does also tie into the micro business, which is our VITA tax program. That stands for the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program. So this is also a program of the Community Action Network, where we help folks who make incomes of $67,000 or less, no matter what your household size is. And that's a IRS rule, is that you can help someone who's 67 or less. And so we started out as a very sort of small, very seasonal, helping a couple hundred people, at each agency file taxes for free. Right now, we have grown to filing over 5,000 taxes throughout the network. We recently, in the last few years, received some very substantial funding from the state's treasurer's office to help us build our programs so that they could be a full-time staff person who helps with taxes all year round. So, folks who qualify for our VITA tax often are coming to us throughout the year, like all spring and summer after tax season. Our tax coordinator is filing I just filed the last 5 years for someone, right? People who haven't done their taxes, helping folks who didn't do their property tax adjustment. Believe it or not, there are many homeowners who don't know that they can get a property tax credit, right? So we try to help, educate people and help them. We're working with a couple of folks right now who, in partnership with Legal Aid, who, for whatever reason didn't file their homestead, but there's some program that will allow them. So we're helping them do their taxes so that they can get their property tax credits. And, folks are getting scary letters from the IRS, right? I think you probably all heard there's a movement to have, a federal tax, a place where you can do your taxes for free. It's not happening in Vermont, right? But VITA is one of those programs that can help people, and we do it with no agenda in mind, right? Like, we're doing this to help the people get the most credits and tax returns that they can, help them figure out how to make payment plans if in fact they do need to make payment plans, and also helping them when I talk about in the next slide, the financial coaching piece will come in with taxes as well. But here are just some numbers. We had statewide 118 volunteers It's hard to find volunteers, but there are people who do like to do taxes. And it's actually fun and it's great for your resume. So if you know of any young people who are like, oh, I want to build a skill, great skill to have. We fired over 5,000 tax returns. And just some stats on getting the earned income tax credit, which is really helpful for those low income families who work and can get access to the earned income tax credit and the child tax credit. One place that I'd really like to see us improve upon is getting more families who are eligible for the child tax credit, more low income families to utilize our services, because they often want to get their refund quickly, and the paid service places will give them refund advances, which are technically loans. Sometimes they're zero interest depending on the amount. Sometimes they're high interest, and they are dependent on it actually those taxes going through and being accepted by the IRS. And so if your tax is rejected, and you've gotten your advance, that can be a problem. So, the outreach is for us a place that it's a hard sell for people who really need the money fast, because we can't give them an advance on their refund, but we would like them to not have to pay to get their taxes done.
Yeah, so a slide before, it said $67,000. I just.
67. Oh, yeah.
I just had the pleasure of doing my taxes last night. Is that,
That's early.
I'm always early. You choose, like the next day. Is that 67,000 gross, or is that 67,000 the other number?
Well, okay, so let's just say it's when someone comes to us, it's their sort of adjusted gross income, right? And this is what will happen. Someone will come to us, they'll give us, and they'll be like, oh, it's 70,000. We're not going to make them go away. We just filled out everything with them, right? And their paperwork. So we're not going to turn them away. It's not like it's against the law for us to do someone, but it really is designed to help folks who are on the lower income not have to pay for taxes.
So next time I should reach out to you guys.
If you are 67 or less, then yes, please, we can do those for free.
TurboTax does like $89.
Yes, right. Yeah. And there is, just so you know as well, there is something called My Free Taxes, which is through maybe HR Block who does the software. But myfreetaxes.com has a slightly higher income threshold, but you have to do it yourself. But I will say that folks who come to us to do their taxes, it's because they don't know, right? They don't know how to use the software. A lot of times they're older Vermonters, or they're just so scared of taxes, right? And so they see us as a trusted resource. They may be someone who are already using our other services or not. We have a lot of folks who just come for the VITA service. But as tax preparers, we also because we are an agency that offers multiple services, we can make referrals if we need to for folks. And our micro business, we have, I think, did I mention it on here? Yeah, that 454 businesses, small businesses who just filed their Schedule C. So those are the folks that work with us, can have their taxes done. And it's a huge savings for folks. We had this woman, literally yesterday, I got this quote from this woman who had been, had a hired people are great. I'm not saying anything against hired tax preparers. But she's literally lives on Social Security and a small pension from her widow, she's a widower, and she's got the homestead declaration. She pays $450 to get that done. And I'm like, my guess is she makes $26,000 a year, right? She can get this done for free and very quickly through us. So she was so excited that she hadn't heard of us, right? So that's, getting the word out is another important piece of it. Okay. So my final suite of financial capabilities programs is our financial coaching and counseling. We talk about financial coaches, but really it does start with counseling. So down here at the bottom, you'll see that our coaches are AFCPE, which stands for the Association of Financial Counseling and Planning, accredited financial counselors. So we go through a rigorous training and and as well as continuing education to maintain our accreditation, to be able to advise people on all things related to personal finance. So we have very trained and skilled coaches who work one-on-one with folks and also provide weekly workshops on personal finance. So we are helping folks with budgeting, debt management, goal setting, financial fraud education. It has we've added that to our suite of education pieces because that's becoming more problematic. And also navigating benefits and programs. So we often work with folks who are lower income, who may be looking to have or maybe getting a pay increase, right? And then they're suddenly going to lose their 3 Squares benefits, and helping them navigate, well, how are you going to pay for that differential, which is not the same as your loss of your food stamps. Yes.
I just wanted to, on the credit coaching, I see a lot of stuff like on the internet and TV, are you in over your head? Call us and we'll help you pay down your bills and all this kind of stuff. And I'm always very leery of those because I've found that about 95% of them are scams.
Yeah.
Is that a service that you are offering to the community?
Except it's not a scam. So yes, yes. So,
Right.
yeah. So we work with folks who may have a lot of the folks that I've worked with. I'm also a financial counselor. I haven't had the honor of doing it in a while because of my position as director, but I've worked with folks over many years who had, primarily it's often credit card debt, right?
Yeah.
And I might work with a family who has like literally $90,000 in credit card debt. So if you can imagine that, that's like more than a mortgage for some people, right? So helping them either, you can basically do it on your own, which can be more challenging, but we also make referrals to a place called Green Path, which is a nonprofit association that helps people do debt repayment. So it's not like they're forgiving the debt, they're just working with the debtors or the creditors rather to come up with plans that are manageable for this person. And so, we often will make referrals to someplace like that if it's a high level of debt. If it's something that's more manageable, we work with them on their budgeting. So a lot of folks have never put their money down on a spreadsheet to say like money in, money out, right? And then they're like, that's why I have to use my credit card every month for this, because you literally don't have enough money to pay your bills, right? So we help them with looking, are there ways we can cut? Are you having too much taken out of your taxes? Maybe you need to, adjust your W-4. Are you saving for retirement? Like that's a big thing. A lot of the folks that we work with do not save for retirement. And the onus is on us now to save for retirement, right? There's no more pensions for folks. So really it is our responsibility and to save for ourselves. So we are really working with folks to say, is there something that you can set aside for retirement, which is why we're excited about the treasurer's program that will hopefully help encourage people. And we've told the treasurer that we are happy to work with him on, educating or going in and doing workshops with these businesses to encourage people to, consider putting some of their money aside for retirement. Yes.
Yes.
Sorry. Go ahead.
We had a conversation this last week with Amanda Smith, Deputy Commissioner, Department of Financial Regulation. Part of that had to do with this kind of workshops going around the states on the matter of, this consumer protection around scams and fraud, et cetera. Is that, I saw just in that previous slide, something quickly about like monthly workshops. Is that something that all of the partners of ECAP are doing? Is it something that's also touching different corners of the state? Can I hear more about that distribution?
Sure. Yeah. So the short answer is yes, every community action agency is doing workshops around the state. We don't have like a canned workshop that we're all doing. So we all sort of design our own workshops, but they cover the topics of like budgeting, debt reduction, credit building, like retirement savings, insurance, that kind of thing. And then we have one on financial fraud. I don't believe, that's a good question, but I don't believe every agency is doing that. I will say that the Department of Financial Regulation supported us with 1 year of funding for $50,000. And that was sort of how we got into the financial fraud piece of it. And unfortunately, they ran out of money to help us because they, it's been a great partnership with them. But we partner with area banks to provide, fraud prevention workshop. We try to, sort of take the show on the road a little bit to educate different sectors like schools or, senior centers and that kind of thing. So, we are asking for funding to support 5 full-time financial counselors in each one of the agencies. And that certainly should become a requirement, is the whole financial, fraud piece around educating folks. Because it's getting worse. I mean, just.
Which is why it's good. It's not a canned presentation. It's tailored
Yes.
to what's needed.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And in fact, ours is a little different at Capstone. We have something called money conversations. So what they do is they have a topic. So it's not like they're up there lecturing people. They have a topic. It might be about credit, and it really becomes more of a conversation. So people feel like they're in a safe space. They can ask questions like, oh, I have this problem, or this happened to me. And it becomes more of like a peer-to-peer program with the coaches facilitating it and providing that real knowledge and expertise about the subject at hand. And what makes us different, you might think, oh, well, my financial, person can help me with this. We're not out to sell anything. We don't sell a product. Like, if I'm helping someone with retirement, I'm not saying go and invest it in this fund. I'm saying this is what a mutual fund is, or this is what an index fund is. And this is how you might want to, divide up your investments. And this is why you should be doing that.
With the financial fraud thing, do you have folks that come to you like after the fact? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, I have. In fact, for me, most recently, I had someone who, well, actually, right this very moment, we're helping someone file taxes who is a victim of a scam. And it's one of your colleagues is putting in a bill about debt forgiveness on what you owe in taxes for like your retirement, if you pull money out of your retirement, and then you're going to have to pay taxes. So this woman gave away all her retirement to someone, and she owes $40,000 in taxes this year. So that would be an example of someone who might benefit from a bill that forgave that tax implication. I had worked with someone recently who had been a victim of a love scam, right? And gave $30,000 despite, and I will say the banks are really good. They know to stop people, but there are people who just refuse to follow the directions. So she, was warned, she was stopped on many levels, but finally was able to give someone $30,000. And I worked with her for 2 years and she paid it all back herself. And just on, basically every 2 weeks we'd meet, we'd talk about, where are we now? How are you doing on this? What can you do to bring this one down? And so she succeeded in paying off her credit card bill without having to file bankruptcy. But yes, it is more and more common.
Just a follow up.
Sure.
Are you also with that kind of able to provide, because I know it can be such an isolating experience and a rather emotional experience.
Yes.
But when you were talking about your courses, are you able to kind of offer people a little bit of that like emotional support, or are they able to share their stories with one another and kind of get that support?
Yeah, both. So you'll see that both in a workshop, but you'll also see it one-on-one, right? I mean, when I was doing this full time, I would come home and I'd say to my husband, it was a good day. Nobody cried, right? Like, because it was, it is so stressful and people come in despair. But having someone like a financial counselor who understands, what options are out there. People are afraid of bankruptcy, for example. I'm like, it's not that bad, folks. It's not that scary, right? Like, and so, having someone who can help them set that plan in action of like, how am I going to get out of where I am? has really I mean, I would not be surprised if we have literally saved people's lives, right? People who are in such despair and don't know what to do or where to go. We're here to help them. And we see hundreds of people. In my agency, we served over 300 people last year. So.
Do you see any like legislation that could be passed to prevent, those love scams of $30,000 going out? Because yeah, and I've seen that where people just refuse to believe it, and it's, I've looked, I know somebody that's, experienced that, and it's awful.
I think it's so hard, like it's hard to recoup it, right? Like, or to even find the scammer, right? I mean, these people are often just these people from other countries, right? Who are, never show their face and just have a photograph, right? And so I personally, can't think of like legislation to protect these people, but things like the debt forgiving of the tax implication is something. It doesn't give that woman back her 800,000 that she gave away, but it's something. She doesn't have a 400,000. Well, she does now, but it's for, and so those are the kinds of things that, and it's also education, right? It's like, and I say to myself, I'll never be that way. I don't know that when I'm 80 years old, I'm not going to be like susceptible to this kind of scam. I have no idea, right? So I think having folks like us just be there and to be able to support people and to be able to, I even had a client who she would call me and she'd be like, I saw this thing on the TV. And I'd be like, don't do it. Right? So having that trusted source, which is the Community Action Agency, is, I think, an important place for this, so the Community Action Network, for this kind of work.
You said you worked with part of the financial regulation. Do you work with the Attorney General's office as well?
Only if like we have to like maybe report something or something like that, but no.
They're also a good resource when you're talking about fraud and protection. They do have people that will come around and speak to that as well. So they reach out to the Attorney General's office. And
definitely. And we often will make referrals sometimes, if someone's like, oh, you should reach out to the AGs if this thing happens.
They're not just there to, to file lawsuits against some of these actors, right?
Right.
They provide educational opportunities too to help educate the public. Because I think more than anything else it's education that's going to stop these scams.
And this slide, just this coach, this quote here, this was a homeowner who was working with a coach. And, as if you are a homeowner now, homeownership is not cheap, right? There's a lot of responsibility on a homeowner. And so keeping folks who have lower incomes, this person was a home health care provider, and a single parent, kids, 3 teen kids. And this was somebody that the coach worked with for a number of years to really try to get them in a position where they could stay in their home. And I'm happy to say they're still in their home and they're doing much better. But this person also was the hardest worker and also had very serious health issues and was on Medicaid. So had to kind of, deal with that as well. While, working their tail off and navigating all of that and wanting to stay in their home, and they're still there. So that's good. Here's a couple little quotes from folks who have worked with a financial counselor. Here's someone who set up a retirement account and someone who improved a credit score. We work with, one of my counselors worked with someone over the last few years. Both of the couple were disabled, but she helped them with homeownership. So they are now living in a house in St. Johnsbury that they just closed on. So that's really exciting. And they work with our tax department. That kind of leads to this little Venn diagram here. This is my final slide. Where these three programs, we work holistically as a community action agency. So we are often, as our micro business development counselors are also the accredited financial counselors. So they're not just business coaches, but they're personal finance counselors as well. So they understand that personal finance piece that is needed for a micro business to be successful. We do referrals. So last year as a network, we did over 450 taxes for small businesses. So those are a lot of the easy Schedule Cs that come in, and they're people who have also worked in our micro business development. And then as a financial coach, working with someone, who may be having their taxes done. If I'm doing their taxes, because I also will volunteer to do taxes on the weekend, I might say to that person who, owes $4,000 to the IRS, this is why you owe $4,000 to the IRS, because you had 4 jobs and you didn't have enough taxes taken out. And this is what you need to do. You need to take steps A, B, and C so that next year you don't owe taxes. So having those knowledge, it's crucial to make these programs successful and to be able to help people holistically. So I think that is the end of my testimony.
So I really appreciate all of the things that you're doing. And I know that sometimes when you're in it, it's hard to look up and, but I'm wondering, it seems like you're in touch with a lot of people who need systemic support, right? Things that we could do differently here. And I'm wondering if you keep an eye on the bills or if you're involved in some, future planning for how we modify the things that we do here, specifically around housing and financial. And this is my, you probably have a very different perspective because you're doing the work, but the financial barriers and where we need to be the most supportive for people for housing. And I'm curious what learnings you have like in that.
So we are actually testifying in some committees about housing. And I think one of our biggest concerns right now is the loss of the ERAP funding, which provided those supports to folks sometimes it may be hard for people to think like, how hard is it to get an apartment and stay in it, right? But it can be very hard for folks who maybe traditionally have had a history of difficulty staying housed, right? Because of all the barriers that they're facing. So we are requesting some funding that can help. And Allison, if you want to speak to it a little bit more, that will help provide those continued supports to families, because it's not just like, oh, here's your apartment, bye. It's checking in with people. It's making sure that their needs are met so that they can be successful renters. Yes, we have a housing crisis, but even if we had a house for everybody, there would still be people who are challenged in staying in their homes and being respectful and responsible tenants, right? And so that's what our programs are, that's what we're really looking to do, is to continue to provide those services, because we have a lot of success in keeping people housed, but it's because we had those funds to be able to follow up with people and to check in on them and to, make sure they're keeping the house in good order, right? And that they're being respectful tenants and that they're able to pay their rent, and helping them in small ways if they're not able to. So
I really appreciate that answer. And I'm wondering if you look farther upstream, right? Like root cause kind of thing, if there are systemic changes that we can make. And this, I don't want to put you on the spot here. I just feel like you're in a place, your organizations are in a place where you could really help us figure some of that out and come up with thoughts.
I think Head Start, which is the early child care program, which has the family, the approach to working with families and children, is really, I think our focus is often, we realize that the parent situation may not change, but can the generation of the children be improved, and can we make the child better off? And it's a successful program, and our standards are higher than public school standards for the education standards for Head Start. And so, there are folks who are always going to have challenges, but I think that we know that housing, obviously, when you're not housed, right? That's really hard, right? And if we can get the housing problem solved, I think that that goes a long way to stabilizing families, because I'm telling you, you look at financial coaching and retirement, do you think that people who are homeless are thinking about their retirement account? No, they're thinking about, how am I going to get my next meal? How am I going to get my kid to daycare? Right? There's a scarcity. When there's scarcity, you're not able to plan. And so I think that if we had more housing and supports for housing to make people be successful, that would go a long way to helping people become more stabilized overall in their personal finance. Mhm.
I know we didn't really touch on weatherization, but since, job workforce
Yeah.
is kind of our thing. I was curious about how that program's going and if you're also asking for additional funds for that.
So weatherization's going well. We are going to be, I don't actually know what we're asking for. Do you know, Tom, what we're asking for weatherization?
Yeah, so the Agency of Human Services, Office of Economic Opportunity makes that ask. But the money has been significantly reduced since post-COVID.
Okay.
And so we are operating way less than we have. So we were ramped up during COVID. We're sort of stabilizing now. Some agencies may have to ramp down. But we are otherwise going full steam ahead. We heard about for our agency at Brock Community Action, we're doing 12 units a month. Yeah.
And I will say, so one of the problems with, if you're aware about, this was Tom Donahue, by the way, from Brock Community Action, the executive director.
Yeah, if I could just let Tom state his name for the record.
Tom Donahue, CEO for Brock Community Action, and we represent the counties of Rutland and Bennington. Including Tom.
But one of the problems with weatherization is that it's also income eligible. And so it's supposed to be up to 80% of the area median income, but because of the lack of funding, people are generally, we can serve maybe up to 60% of area median income. And so if you are technically eligible for weatherization, but you're somewhere in that sort of middle spot where you keep getting bumped back, you can sign up for weatherization, but you keep getting bumped back if someone applies and has a lower income than you do. So many folks just don't have access to weatherization, and it's harder for them to afford to pay someone to weatherize their home.
Do you know if there's any particular reason why funding has shifted down?
Why funding has shifted down?
No.
But we can find out, maybe.
Continue to research on that.
Yeah, a lot of it comes through LIHEAP, and LIHEAP was reduced by $2 million last year.
Thank you.
I am interested in sort of the financial coaching that you do. Is there an element of sort of career coaching that goes into that? And or sort of what is the connection to, because we've been learning a lot about a whole variety of workforce development programs and stuff. So kind of
Yeah,
like
so-
coaching to help people make more money.
Yes, so that falls into financial coaching depending on who we're working with. And oftentimes it is around you don't have enough money to pay your bills, is there something else you could be doing to make more money, right? And so, but that's not like officially a piece of it. I know that Reach Up partnered with us for many years to provide financial counseling. And so we would work with the folks on Reach Up and do budgeting and workshops and all that kind of stuff. They replaced that with a career coach model, who then does allegedly some financial counseling, although they do often refer people back to us. But I know that's happening. We do have, the CAPS have, depending on the agency, might have a workforce development program. We have something called the Community Kitchen Academy Workforce Development Program. And we will, for example, we have a lesson every session. We'll have someone go in for a whole day and talk about soft skills and financial, the whole financial piece of having a job. But no, that's not necessarily a focus, but it certainly is around if you need more income.
I don't have a question. I just want to make a comment. Capstone has been extremely amazing in Berry City.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Liz, could you just go back to the micro business? I didn't see the block where you talk about what your base funding is at the moment and then what you're looking for.
Okay, yeah. So our base funding is 493,335. And that has been level funded for a long time. And as you know, salaries went up and
I remember it
all of that.
when it was 306,000.
Yeah. Yeah, this was actually a great success story. I've been at Capstone for 11 years this year, and I remember the days when it was lower. And so this we're basically looking for an inflation increase to of $87,000 more.
Certainly when the budget comes out and we start those discussions, we'll have you back in to talk about.
That'd be great.
More about that, and whatever you have for data, please gather it, because we'll want to.
I wanted to, did I share with you? I just testified someplace else. I can't remember. Did I say anything to you guys about the Embrace grant and the Main Street Flood Relief Fund? Did I talk about that? Okay.
You talked about, but bring that in as well.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're, yeah. So I have those reports and things like that I'm happy to share.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. I really appreciate all the questions you guys had, and thank you for the opportunity to explain about the programs that we offer at the Community Action Network.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Just want to recognize, Lafayette. I've worked with Karen for a long time, but Karen's part of the legislative family as well. She's a former representative.
Yeah.
We love Karen.
Mr. Chairman. Yeah. No, this committee has always given us a seat at the economic development table, because we're often relegated to human service pieces. And so that's been great. And you've always supported our efforts, and we really do appreciate that.
We definitely do. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really sign out of this.
Committee that is this.
Are you banking this half hour?
My bank is growing. The last year's results.
Thank you very much.
Weekend.
Thank you. Thank you.
Enjoy the snow.
Just to let the committee know, I had more discussions each year, and really, especially about the early childhood care issues, and there's Edie has sent around a link for you to take a look at.
Working on it.
Yeah, so you'll get that, but it's something that JFO has prepared on that 13 and 13.
Yeah.
And so I think it explains it much better and better understood. And so I've asked appropriations and also when we sent our letter to appropriation, we forgot to include that. So we did a second supplemental to our letter to appropriations, talking about making sure they keep the 13 bank. So that's changed, and I think you'll understand why when you read the memo from JFO. So I've asked them to accept our first letter. So the dollars, especially in there's $13.2 million of the payroll tax special fund. So there were $92 million. The revenue forecast is that there'll be $92 million coming from the payroll tax. The budgeted amount 79. So it's $13.2 million over payment. And so that is what the BAA is doing, is saying we're going to take that 13.2 million, put it in the general fund. It's still going to be spent for childcare, early childhood care. It's just, so it's not affecting the special fund. We're not removing 13 million. It's more money than we anticipated we were going to get. So it's still going to be spent for childcare. It's not going to affect the fund.
but it's hard to explain.
It is, and you'll see it in the. map.
Yeah, I was good.
Okay, but it's not going to the special fund,
It's not going into the special fund, but but it is a special fund for child.
but it is a special fund.
So it's going into the general fund. They also are talking about possibility of their human services there's a special fund that's there for other things and they're looking to include childcare. So CCFAP in that special fund so that so those dollars will stay in childcare. So that's all being worked out now. I don't have the heartburn I had at first when we were talking about this and.
I haven't had a chance to look at the FMA, so I'm hoping that will explain it. I'll get to it over the weekend. If I had any questions, I'll get back to you.
Yeah, Molly, Moore from Speaker's Office has also sent something to us all, and there is a link there to that, to a document to that too. So, yeah,
You'll have it in just a moment.
I feel much better about it. So.
I'm sure most of us have gotten inquiries from constituents about that. Is any of this information such that we cannot share it publicly or?
Public document.
That's what I.
Yeah, and we're still on we're still on live too. It's there. But it's on, and it's also on appropriations webpage too.
I just
under their
sent it.
document, so. Yeah. Any other questions? Well, thank you all for another good week. Next week, we'll start working on our first bill. Take up H-34. The earned wage access bill is, I put it in. That should be out next week too. I'm hoping that we'll have a walkthrough of that bill and take some testimony on that as well. There is another bill I've got coming that's dealing with non-compete clauses in contracts. I'll be circulating that if you want to sign on to it next week when I've asked some people to take a look at it. Right now, there's no exclusions in it. There could be exclusions for people that are administrators in higher businesses like banks and stuff that should be under a non-compete because of the things that they do. If you don't want someone from, that's president of one bank to take over the bank that's across the road or something like that. So there are areas where non-competes make sense, but there's a lot of areas where they don't make sense.
So like key people.
Yeah.
In a business.
So we'll see, see where that comes. Also, there's a study committee for the rec trails. I don't know if it'll start here. I think the way it's written, it'll probably start in ag, but I've talked to the chair there, so we'll have a chance to weigh in on it as well. But, so those are the things I know about right now. And, work is coming, so. So everybody have a good weekend. Again, thank you for your work this week. And, we'll see you on Tuesday morning at 9:00. We'll have the document up for you soon. So we got Vermont Arts Council, at 9:00. That's the only testimony we'll be taking. On Tuesday, we have the governor's budget address. That's, I think going from 1 to 3:30. So, then we're looking at Small Business Day on Wednesday. So we'll be doing the whole hearing with, our counterparts in the Senate. Over in room 267. We'll be holding a hearing there all morning on Wednesday. And then the afternoon, we'll be taking up H-34, taking testimony on that. Possibly marking it up and voting it out if we can. And then we get the floor. So then, Community College of Vermont will be coming in. State Auditor Hoffer will be coming in. Then, this is on Thursday, then we'll try to do the walkthrough of the earned wage access. We don't have a number yet, but we should have a number by that time. And then take some testimony on that Thursday afternoon. And then we have our our intern on Friday, Thompson Good. 10 minutes after the floor will be coming in and chatting with us. Vermont Law School will be coming in to talk to us. And in the afternoon, we'll have General Knight with the Vermont National Guard will be coming in. And Vermont Retail Grocers at 2, and that'll end our day. It could be, things could change depending on how H34, we're not comfortable, or there's something comes up where we need to make some changes. If we need more testimony, we may use some Friday afternoon for that too, but we'll see as things go along. So